I was scrolling through various discussion websites at some time early in the morning. At least I thought that's what time it was. My window that led to my house's balcony showcased a fairly brightened mist that drifted noiselessly throughout my neighborhood, accompanied by a slight drizzle that resembled an audience clapping. I had my cat there with me, who was sleeping at the head of my bed, seemingly in a deep sleep as both of its ears were dropped, with him making only the occasional heavy sigh. Most of the websites were low quality, usually barraging me with constant advertisements for things irrelevant to any usual person, but there seemed to be a fair amount that caught my eye. Since I was digging extremely far into the web, topics I usually came across were immensely exotic, some about odd fetishes people might have, or extremely specific health issues that other people found similar. I might have seen one or two of the same person posting the same topic, and I didn't question it much, only really thought that they might have been looking for more input, or vice versa, they weren't getting any. There seemed to be an outlier to it though. After a certain point, since most of the websites weren't meant to store much data, they discarded any inactive threads in order to keep the server from completely shutting off due to the data overload. What was kind of ironic was that some people had also made it to where they were actually talking about the issue and how much it was annoying them. Either that, or they disappeared from the website completely because of that issue, the website deleting their user and that user's history in order to make space for any new user that might enter. It led to some confusion, as new people would join a conversation but only see the person that still resided in that room's messages, leading them to wonder what conversation took place before. I was viewing some threads when I came across a single one on some website with an odd disco background. It wasn't long, in fact very brief, but I had recognized the topic from other websites, as well as the user that had posted it. I kept on taking it down and refreshing it, hoping that newer people that entered the website would stumble across it and hopefully engage in a conversation with them. I looked at the caption for the chat room, and it didn't even make sense to me. It read that the person was asking for help on how to bind their legs, arms, and other parts of their body to different keys on their keyboard from what they had normally. To be honest, it seemed as if the person was trying to weird out people that looked upon their thread. But at the same time, were they really doing it as a joke if they continued to put it up? It was such an absurd question that I continued to try and wrap my head around, yet it seemed as if there was a clear-cut answer that I was avoiding looking for. After a few minutes of just continuing to string my head around it in order to find an answer, I gave up and clicked on the chat room, entering it and being greeted with the website's general rule prompt. Even before I could scroll down and hit accept, I could already see that the person was sending messages through the chat box at a fairly quick rate, which I wasn't expecting. If anything, I was expecting them to be gone, as they weren't receiving any traction, so it really made no sense for them to be active in it. I hit accept on the rules and engaged into the chat room. The first couple messages were, well, normal, I guess. The first was a greeting, and the second was a surprised message that someone had actually joined the room. Before I could even answer a question, instead of the person continuing to try and establish a conversation, their messages dissipated, and my screen flickered to an animated image that looped endlessly. The main focus of the image was a fair-skinned girl that donned a tattered shirt of some old band from decades ago. The writing that hovered above the almost completely dissipated image of the band was cracked, and pieces of many letters had flaked off, leaving only misconstrued shapes that looked as if a toddler had stuck cut pieces of paper onto a blue piece of felt. Below the shirt were basketball shorts that had two stripes along the sides, which gave off what seemed to be a cherry red, but had since faded into almost complete gray. She stared at me with heterochromic eyes and a seemingly friendly smile that was, well, a bit calming. Stygian hair that mixed with almost similar background flowed downwards into an abyss past her shoulders, almost halfway down from her back. If I was being truthful, she seemed like a normal person. Although, studying the image more, I saw one offset to the quote-unquote normal criteria. Around most of her joints were discolored lines, mostly purple as if scars were left there. You could see them clearly around larger areas, namely her neck, elbows, and knees. But the major joints weren't the only ones. Around each bend of her fingers, the bottom of them, her jaw, and probably the most horrifying, since her shirt wasn't exactly fitting her, her back was exposed, leaving one cut for every single joint along her spine. Aside from her, the background was completely black, aside from a flicker every now and then that changed it to a snow static from old televisions. "Hi," she said, interrupting the semi-uncomfortable silence. Her image didn't change, but you could still completely tell that it was her speaking. Hi. "Hello," she greeted me again. I wasn't really expecting someone to actually look at this conversation since, well, no one seemed to really care. Her cadence led me to think she was around a year younger than I was, 14, which kind of stunned me that I was managing to stumble across another person my age on one of these websites. "That's a very, old band you have on there. So old it seems to have faded from the shirt, haha." I laughed nervously, not really sure what to do in this situation. The girl chuckled. "Yeah, my parents gave me this shirt a long time ago, since it's really the only thing I can wear. This design has faded over time." She was trying to dodge something from being asked without response, although I wasn't exactly sure what it was. "You can only wear that?" I asked. "Yep, I mean it's kind of hard to change clothes digitally." That sentence, the way she worded it, it threw me off. I didn't understand what exactly she meant, so I had to ask again. "So, wait, your sentence doesn't make sense. It's the only thing you can wear, but you can't change clothes digitally? That doesn't make sense." The girl's voice raised. "How so?" Her response stunned me, to the point where I was shaking my head thinking, is she not joking? "Okay, I can't seem to understand what you're saying, so can you clarify for me what you mean then?" The image of her flickered. It was still looping, but the girl's hand went from pointing at her elbow, then to her fingers, then to her knee. "Okay." I was getting some bad ideas from what she was doing. She was pointing at the joints with those discolorations, which wasn't exactly piecing anything together for me, but still gave me ideas on what she was talking about. "Okay, so this avatar of yours, you're trying to figure out how to bind different keys on your keyboard to different limbs on your avatar?" The image flickered again, showing her eyebrow now raised, seemingly confused by my guess. "This is an avatar, right?" I implied again. "No," she replied blankly. "Only one thing made sense to conclude from there, but it was too outlandish to suggest, unless I didn't think it was somehow possible to program a person into their computer. But even then, how would it work? Even though I wasn't typing anything, muscle memory left my hand at my keyboard and they were shaking violently. It was the only thing I could think of, and my mind was still refusing to accept that it was the only answer. So, my voice was strangled in my throat as if it was being choked out. This is you? You're somehow in your own computer? Yes? She said it so calmly, which I couldn't understand. My throat burned with, well, I don't know what feeling. Fear? Aside from that, everything seemed to piece itself into line. Those purple marks, were they what separated each part of her body? Was that what her question was asking? Each limb to a different key. I felt it was an insensitive question, but my worry of the situation got the better of me, and the words were forced out. If I may ask, what are those lines you have around your body? Exactly what I need help with, she exhaled. I separate each part of my body that I bind it to different actions on my computer. I could feel my teeth chattering out of fear now. You're speaking as if that's normal? Yes? She hesitated to answer, obviously confused at what I was saying. I don't know how to continue. How do you implement yourself into your computer? I didn't. My face scrunched in confusion. Then who? She cut me off, obviously irritated that I kept dragging the conversation away from where she wanted. I don't know. I'm keeping the conversation simple because I don't want to go into detail about it because I don't know. If her voice was direct and harsh, even though her tone was obviously irritated, the image didn't flicker, leaving her smile that contrasted with her voice. Not if... You know what, never mind. Please, if it may seem weird to you, I understand that, and I am fine with you asking about it, but even though it is, I'd rather just try and see if someone could help me with it, please. If you could just... I cut her off. I don't think you understand how absurd this is. She cut me off this time, image flickering, and her face changed into an irritated glare that signaled me to stop pushing it. Through the cuts on her joints, I could see her blood spilling from them, oozing downwards and disappearing below the edge of my screen. Apparently, any sort of stress that she received would trigger that sort of reaction. And that proved my theory right. Her limbs were separated, but she also denied any knowledge of how she ended up that way, which was the one thing throwing me off. If she truly didn't have any ability to recollect why she was in such a horrid situation, then I would have thought she had been more hasteful about, well, how to fix it, and not mindlessly wandering the web, hoping for a complete stranger to stumble across, provide assistance to her. But since I was here, I just wanted to, well, continue to try and ascertain how such a situation finds itself like this. But the girl was obviously trying to drive the conversation away to the technical issue she had. Even if that was my main priority, she had, well, no recollection of how her condition worked or how it transpired in the first place, so really, I was stuck. My instincts were telling me I'd be digging myself a rabbit hole if I stayed and tried to help. Even so, what was kind of odd was I felt intrigued to figure out why it happened. It was a revolutionary achievement that obviously succeeded in bringing the subject into the computer. So what point was there in hiding it? It just seemed like too many things were set in place that meant to cast a veil over this and keep it a mystery. Hey, can I ask something then, if you obviously don't want me to continue asking about your condition? What do you really want me to do? I have no way to help you if I can't learn anything about your condition. So, her image stared at me, and her expression reverted back into her smile before flickering to what I'm assuming was her vision, the screen of her computer. When it came up, something odd struck me. She had somehow managed to overtake both the website and my own computer, leaving me no control over my own. I paused myself. If she really had the ability to do something like that, then I didn't think asking about it would be the right idea. Especially since she wasn't too hot on dragging the conversation in any other way. She clearly knew how to navigate her computer efficiently enough, though, in her condition, bringing me already to the settings area of her computer, where the bindings to her keys resided. Although, I felt she was completely joking now. The bindings were, well, normal. From A being bound to the A key, the same occurred for every other key on her keyboard. Everything seems fine on your computer, and there's really no inconsistency with your keys, so sorry if I'm incorrect, but have you been just pulling my leg about this whole thing? The screen flickered red in irritation. I'll take that as a no, but if that's the case, I still have no basis on how to help you with this. The screen flickered back to her, and her eyebrows were now raised, seemingly asking for a solution from me, as if I should have already come up with one. It's really hard not to get irritated by the amount of times you're asking me about this, since the whole point of me making this was to have somebody assist me in figuring this out. You're really trying my ability here. The only thing I can think of is it something external? If you're able to manage that? She looked downwards. I've tried that, but every time I do, it just brings a complete black void that I can't navigate or see in. I have a path to follow now. If that's the case, does that mean your computer has a camera? I think so, but I don't know if it's ever on or not. Like I told you, it's just completely black whenever I try to turn it on. Well, it's the only solution I can think of, so I'd say it's worth a shot. The screen flickered, bringing me back to the original page that both of us were residing in, the one that held her topic. It startled me when she brought me back here, since it made me think she completely detached herself from the conversation. Hello? I tried talking to her. I got a response, but it was garbled through some sort of static filter. probably due to the amount of things that she was trying to process in order to bring the camera feed up. It was relieving, but at the same time that was overshadowed by that anxiety of what could come up when the screen would flicker again. Almost as if it was on cue, my anxiety spiked again as the screen flickered, and it continued flickering for a good while. When it ended, her screen came up, showcasing what her computer's camera was observing. And when it did, two things could be put together. I understood now what she meant by that she needed help with this. And second, she was completely oblivious to how she really got into her computer.